Another aspect that I like to, so really this spaces of personal freedom and liberty is, cinema is always trying to push those boundaries a little. And I think what's nice is that in the heartland of conservatives and in Bollywood as well, there's a lot of experimentation and more risk-taking now than ever before. And another film that was also quite a hit recently, and this is why it's lovely because people are appreciating this kind of cinema, was the film Piku. Just had way too much farting and scatological jokes for my taste. But I think it was something wonderful at the core of the film. Of the many things that it was very layered and talking about, I think there were two things that struck me as really special. There's a moment when, for those who haven't seen it, it's essentially has Amitabh Bachchan play a crotchety old man with his lovely daughter, Deepika Padukone, who is an architect. And she has a kind of a relationship with one or two guys, and she hasn't made up her mind. And the dad is kind of selfish and doesn't want her to get married so she can be around and look after him. And he needs a lot of attention around the house. There's a wonderful sequence in a car when they're traveling. So to please him, she takes this long road trip from Delhi to Calcutta with this horrendous, whatever it's called, on the top of the car. I don't have a word for it. But, so she's really doing a lot for him and he doesn't appreciate it. And then Irfan, who's actually a random travel agent who supplied the gaadi to go, but kind of likes, and she kind of likes him. And it's very unstated and delicate. And in this long road movie section, it's really interesting because he tells her, now he's now in theory, if he was hoping to have a relationship with her and maybe someday marry her, well, then Amitabh's the prospective father-in-law. And Irfan tells Amitabh, you're really so selfish, you can't see what your daughter's doing for you. Now, I think that is something we really almost never acknowledge in Indian cinema in any language, to actually tell a parent that they're selfish, and least of all to your prospective father-in-law, that he's really being selfish. And, a lot of parents are selfish, a lot of children are selfish, but it's almost never articulated in Indian films, whether it's art house or parallel or whatever label. And I think for a mainstream film to bring that delicacy, I think it's really special. And I think actually for me, the hero of the film, other than its many obvious heroes, is really the script by Juhi Chaturvedi, who had earlier written, this film is directed by Shujit Sarkar, who had earlier made Vicky Donor, and also with the same screenwriter, Juhi Chaturvedi. But I think my very favorite scene, again, is the last scene in the film. And I think Bollywood has that kind of really old-fashioned ways of expressing love. So talking of personal freedoms and how you express that freedom. So in an earlier time, you couldn't really say, I love you, and you had two horrendous flowers kissing. And then at some point, the hero would tell the heroine, I love you. And then at some point, they'd be dancing in Switzerland. And then at some point, they would be doing horrendous khatya pelvic thrusts. So you got the picture. But I think the climax of Piku is so delicate. It's just how relationships often are today, and you don't have a name to it, and you don't know if you want to marry the guy, and he's kind of a nice guy, and things kind of muddle along. And I think a lot of relationships are not really defined today, or don't have to end in marriage. And I think that kind of space you don't often see in Bollywood. I don't know how much, you do have some ambiguity in the independent cinemas. And it's, again, the delicacy with which the scene was done. So it's this last scene, unfortunately, I couldn't get it on the trailer, because the trailer has to be more masala and high melodrama. So Deepika Padukone is playing, this kind of tiki-miki badminton where you hit it so that they can hit it back to you. So she's standing in the compound of her bungalow, and there's a car park. It's kind of a half car park. And Irfan is actually on the road playing this badminton. And she's on the phone chattering with another friend and multitasking and playing badminton. And then the maid comes along. And there was an early tiny throwaway sequence early in the film where the maid is really, has been working with Deepika's family, and because Amitabh's really nagging her all the time, she leaves and she said, I'll never work with her as long as there's a guy like him in the house. When there's somebody nice, a master of the house, a decent guy, then I'll come back. And she storms off. It's a totally throwaway moment, and the film goes on. In the last scene, she's playing this mobile phone and half-hearted badminton, and the maid comes by, and she says, "Kaam pe aana hai?" And she says, "Kal se aana." And from the maid's remark, where the relationship between the protagonists is going. It's such a beautiful moment. There's none of this, it's not clearly defined, and we don't know where it's going, but it's not even by direct interaction between them. There's no dialogue even between Irfan and Deepika. But from the maid saying, "Acha, kal se aana," you would gather where the story would go beyond the film. And I think that's really a kind of delicacy and understated space in mainstream cinema that we don't usually come across. And I think it's great that it's allowing for more gray areas and ambiguities than we had before. Can we see Piku, please?